Why can you handle your child's meltdown quite well one evening and feel almost personally attacked by the same behavior the next? I started wondering about this because of a biscuit, not even an exciting biscuit. My granddaughter ate it one afternoon. 20 minutes later, her brother breathed too loudly in her general direction. Apparently, this was deliberate. There were tears, there was shouting, and somebody said, "It must be the sugar." Ah, sugar, the family criminal. For years, whenever a child became energetic, irritable, or attempted to climb something that wasn't designed for climbing, an adult somewhere would look suspiciously at the nearest cupcake. But I'd seen her eat that biscuit before, same biscuit, same child, no international incident. So I started watching. Some evenings, the children could absorb life's little disappointments surprisingly well. Wrong cup? Fine. Bath time? Fine. Brother touching something that apparently became private property 6 seconds earlier? Mostly fine. Other evenings, the sock was wrong, dinner was wrong, someone looked at someone, civilization collapsed. At first, I watched the children. How had they slept? Had they eaten? Had it been a long day? Were they overstimulated? Were they simply exhausted? All sensible questions. And yes, I noticed a pattern. Children have different amounts left on different days. We do too. After a terrible night's sleep, an email that would normally make you sigh can suddenly feel like an act of aggression. You haven't become a different person, you simply have less room for nonsense. Children rarely announce this elegantly. They don't come home and say, "Nana, I'm operating with reduced emotional capacity this evening." They say, "No!" Much more efficient. So I thought I'd solved my little mystery. Tired child, less capacity. Tiny problem becomes enormous. Lovely. Except I hadn't, because after watching families for enough years, I noticed something else. The same child could have very little left and get a very different response from the parent, depending on the evening. One night, "Oh, sweetheart, come here." Another night, "For heaven's sake, it's a banana." Same parent, same child, sometimes practically the same banana. So now I stopped wondering only, what changed in the child? And started wondering, what changed in the parent? That question took me back to when my own daughter was little. I remember one evening she was crying about something I considered completely ridiculous. I can't remember what. That's parenting for you. On Tuesday, it feels like a national emergency. By Friday, you've forgotten what everybody was shouting about. But I remember myself. I was tired. There was dinner. There were things still undone. I wanted the evening to move. And my daughter would not stop crying. I said, "Enough." Not shouting. Worse, perhaps. That particular "enough" parents use when they're trying very hard not to say several other things. She cried harder. So I became firmer. She became louder. Then I used the famous calm parent voice. I am perfectly calm. Nobody who says this is perfectly calm, but at the time I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought, I am trying to settle my child. Years later, I can see something I couldn't see from inside that kitchen. I was trying to settle her, but I was also trying to make her stop making me feel like this. That was harder to admit, because those two things can look remarkably similar from the outside. Stop crying. Calm down. That's enough. There's nothing to be upset about. Sometimes those sentences mean, I want to help you, and sometimes underneath them there is another sentence, I cannot take any more of this. Most parents don't say that part aloud. Sometimes we don't even know we're saying it to ourselves. And that's when Nana's investigation changed. I had spent all this time watching the child's capacity, but perhaps the child wasn't the only person arriving at that moment with a whole day inside them. The parent had a day too. Work, deadlines, traffic, money, messages, decisions, dinner, the thing somebody forgot to tell you until 6:47 p.m. Then a child begins screaming because the banana broke. And something inside you thinks, I have dealt with actual problems today. I cannot believe this is what is going to finish me. That's a very human thought. It doesn't make you a bad parent. But it does tell you something. Because perhaps the mystery isn't only, why can my child cope one day and collapse the next? Perhaps there's another one sitting right beside it. Why can I receive my child's distress one day and experience it almost like a threat the next? And once I saw that, I stopped watching only the child. I started watching the parent too. What I began noticing was almost embarrassingly ordinary. A parent who had eaten, a parent who hadn't, a parent who'd slept, a parent whose boss had called at 5:15, a parent who had nowhere else to be, a parent mentally calculating whether dinner, bath, homework, and bedtime could still happen before everybody lost their minds. Same loving parent, different amount left. And suddenly I understood something about those evenings from my own children's childhood. I had thought I was reacting to how difficult the behavior was. But sometimes I was also reacting from how difficult my day had been. That's an uncomfortable distinction, but I think it's a useful one. Because when you're inside the moment, your own state feels invisible. The child's screaming is obvious. Your exhaustion feels like background information. Their behavior looks like the problem. Your body simply feels like you. So if they shout and something rises in you immediately, your jaw tightens, your voice changes, you start speaking faster. You suddenly need this to end. It can feel as though the child put all of that there. But perhaps they only bumped into something that was already very close to the surface. I wish I'd understood that earlier. Not because I would have become some perfectly serene mother who spoke softly while yogurt flew through the air. I've raised children. Let's remain realistic. I would still have become irritated. I would still have said the wrong thing sometimes. But I might have noticed the difference between my child is having a hard moment and my child's hard moment is colliding with mine. Those are not quite the same problem. And here's where parents can become unnecessarily guilty. They hear this and think, oh, wonderful, so now the meltdown is my fault too. No, that's not what I'm saying. Your child's exhaustion is real. Their hunger is real. Their frustration is real. Their behavior is still their behavior. But you are part of the conditions the behavior meets. And that's useful information. Because we often ask, how do I calm my child? I think there's a question that comes before it. What is my child meeting when they meet me? Are they meeting urgency, fear, embarrassment? A parent desperate for the noise to stop? A parent trying to get everyone out the door? A parent whose mind is still at work? A parent thinking, why can't you just do this one simple thing for me? I've thought that one. Many parents have. And the fascinating part is how quickly we can turn our state into a story about the child. She's being impossible. He's doing this for attention. She knows exactly how to push my buttons. He always does this when I'm busy. Maybe. Sometimes children are extraordinarily talented button researchers. But before deciding what the behavior says about them, I've learned to wonder what my reaction might be telling me about me. Not, am I a good parent or a bad parent? Useless question. Try something smaller. How much of me is actually available right now? Because a depleted child can feel very different to a parent with room than to a parent with none. And that gives us a small distinction I wish somebody had given me years ago. When everything starts rising, there are two states in the room, theirs and yours. Before interpreting the whole interaction, try not to confuse them. What state is my child in? And what state am I receiving them from? That's not the solution to the meltdown. It's not a magic sentence. It doesn't make the broken banana whole again. But it can stop you from believing that everything you're feeling was created in the last 30 seconds. Because sometimes the child's distress is theirs. Your urgency is yours. And then the two begin feeding each other. They rise, you rise. They feel you rise. They rise more. You think, see, they're completely out of control, and now nobody remembers how this started. This is why, these days, when I see one of my grandchildren falling apart, I still look at the child. Of course I do. Did they sleep? Are they hungry? Has the day been too much? But I also look at their parent. Sometimes I can see it in the shoulders, the face, the speed, that tiny pause before, for God's sake. And I remember my own kitchen, my own enough, my own very convincing, I am perfectly calm. I thought the problem was that my daughter couldn't regulate herself. I couldn't see that in that particular moment, neither could I. That's the invisible part. Not because parents are the problem, because parents are people, and people bring themselves into rooms, including the parts nobody else saw that day. So perhaps the question isn't always, why is my child melting down over everything? Sometimes Nana wants to gently put another question beside it. Why does their meltdown feel unbearable to me today? If you can notice that distinction, you've already seen something important. But then comes the difficult part, because noticing I'm activated too is one thing. Knowing what to do with yourself when your child is screaming, dinner is burning, you're already at your limit, and your body has joined the argument, that's something else entirely. And perhaps that's where the real work begins. Not becoming a parent who never gets activated. I don't believe such a creature exists. But becoming a parent who can notice when their child's storm has begun waking up their own, before both storms start deciding what happens next.